Shadows of Valor, it began with the haunting echo of a distant bugle call, a chilling reminder of the fallen, as the blood-red moon illuminated the scarred earth of Sorrow's End, where valor and horror danced in a macabre waltz of memory and loss. It was the autumn of 1916, during the tumultuous times of the Great War. The air was thick with the stench of cordite and the metallic tang of blood, memories etched into the very soil of Sorrow's End. The battlefield was a grotesque panorama of smashed landscapes and shattered lives, where courage met its cruel adversary, fear. Private Thomas Ashford crouched in the mud, his heart racing as he buried his face in his hands, trying to mute the ache of the world around him. The sounds of cannon fire echoed like thunder, shaking the ground beneath him. He could hear the despairing cries of the wounded, mingling with the furious din of battle, a sound that would haunt his dreams for decades. Thomas felt the cold grasp of dread tighten around him, a noose tightening with each passing moment as death danced just outside his vision. They called it the Last Stand, a futile charge across no man's land, where many brave souls had already met their tragic ends. Men in tattered uniforms lay strewn about like discarded toys, their faces twisted in pain or frozen in terror. The mud was soaked red, a morbid reminder of the price they paid for their country, a price that did not seem to have an end in sight. Suddenly, a sharp whistle cut through the air, an order to advance. It pulled Thomas from his paralysis. He looked at his comrades, their faces ghostly pale, yet marked by a steely resolve. With a grim nod, they all rose, pushing through the muck. The fear in their eyes was palpable, but so was the determination to honor those who had fallen before them. The charge was swift and frantic, the roar of chaos swallowing them whole. Shells exploded nearby, showers of earth raining down like grim confetti. Thomas stumbled, falling to his knees. He glanced back to see a fellow soldier fall, clutching his throat, eyes wide with shock. The sight ignited a fire in Thomas's belly, a blend of rage and despair. He pushed onward, propelled by adrenaline and a desperate urge to survive. As he crossed into the enemy's territory, he found himself face to face with the horrors of war, a scene straight from the darkest nightmares. Men writhed in agony, their bodies maimed beyond recognition, cries blending into a symphony of suffering. A soldier, young and terrified, lay beside him, clutching a mangled limb, eyes pleading for help. "Get me out of here, please!" The boy's voice was a brittle whisper under the cacophony of chaos. Thomas reached for him but felt a searing pain in his own leg. A bullet had found purchase. He collapsed beside the boy, both of them helpless in the merciless slaughter. "Stay with me, soldier," Thomas urged, but the boy's eyes glazed over. Moments later, a deafening blast sent a wave of darkness crashing over him, a final act of violence that consumed them both. In the years that followed, the battlefield of Sorrow's End transformed into a solemn memorial for those who lost their lives in that horrific skirmish. The village nearby grew quiet under its shadow, locals refusing to speak of the horrors that took place there. Each Remembrance Day, old veterans gathered at the foot of the hill to honor their lost brothers, sharing stories wrapped in the fog of time, cloaked in grief. But not all stories were meant to be forgotten. Decades later, in the crisp fall of 1962, a small group found themselves drawn to Sorrow's End, fueled by youthful curiosity and an appetite for adventure. Among them was a young vet named Alex, haunted by the aftershocks of his time in the service. He often visited memorials, feeling a connection to those lost and searching for solace in their memories. The companions, Matt, Sarah, and Tim, were eager to explore the local folklore surrounding the battlefield. As they approached the hill, the air turned still, the sunlight dimming beneath ominous clouds. Alex felt an eerie chill race down his spine, a premonition that whispered of hidden truths lurking amidst the remnants of battle. "Did you hear that?" Tim asked, shivering as the wind howled through the gnarled trees. "It's like voices." "It's just the wind," Matt reassured him, though his voice wavered. The group pressed on, hiking up the hill while sharing bravado, ignoring the unease that settled in the pit of their stomachs. At the crest, they found the remnants of a battlefield, silent and decrepit, a solemn haunting of broken remnants and faded shadows. Rusted barbed wire stretched like ghostly fingers through the twisted earth. Remnants of wooden trenches lay rotting, silently mourning the countless lives lost. Even the trees appeared to bend away from the hill, as if recoiling from the brutal memories imprinted in the soil. As the chilling air wrapped around them, Alex stepped away from the group, drawn to a particularly gnarled oak that stood alone in a field marred by shell holes. It had witnessed everything, a silent sentinel observing the horrors of war for decades. "Hey, Alex, you coming?" Sarah called, pulling him from his thoughts. "Yeah, just checking something out," he replied absently. The tree called to him. It seemed alive, as if it carried the weight of every soul lost on this cursed hill. As he touched its rough bark, a sudden wave of emotions crashed over him. Memories flooded his mind. Sights and sounds from the war, the cries of men, the darkness of the field, and the pain that transcended time. He staggered back, breathless, fighting the tears that threatened to spill. "Are you okay?" Matt asked, concern etched across his brow as he approached. Before Alex could respond, the wind howled once more, sending a shiver through the air, and a sudden chill enveloped them like a shroud. The temperature dropped dramatically, their breath hung in clouds as they huddled closer. "Incredible," Tim muttered as he pulled out his phone, trying to capture the odd ambiance. "Let's get a picture." As he framed the shot, something flickered in the corner of the lens, a fleeting shadow darting past the oak. "What the hell was that?" Tim exclaimed, lowering the camera, eyes wide with disbelief. Alex, still reeling from his brush with the past, felt a surge of courage. "Let's stay a little longer," he urged, looking around at his friends. "We owe it to them, to understand what they went through." Reluctantly, the others agreed, casting wary glances at the storm clouds brewing above. They gathered in a circle, each sharing stories of veterans they knew. Family members, friends, light moments woven through heavy memories, laughter mixed with the eerie ambiance, and for a moment, it felt like the weight of sorrow lifted. But as dusk began to settle over Sorrow's End, reality peeled away, revealing a deeper darkness. Suddenly, the group fell silent. A deep rumble sounded, rolling through the air, mingling with the wind, a low thrum that sounded almost like voices. "Did you hear that?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. I think I did," Alex replied, heart pounding. The air thickened with tension as shadows danced between the trees, and he stepped forward, feeling an unshakable pull. "We need to find out what's happening." As they moved deeper into the heart of the battlefield, the world around them warped into a nightmarish reality. The sky darkened ominously, the once vibrant colors draining into a monotonous gray. The whispers grew louder, a symphony of lament echoing from the ground, a cacophony of emotions held captive by time. "Guys, this isn't right. We should go back," Matt urged nervously, his voice strained. But Sarah clutched his arm, her curiosity igniting a fierce determination. "Not yet. What if we're meant to witness something? Something important?" As the wind howled ferociously, twisting through the trees, they found themselves drawn to an unearthly glow emanating from a clearing ahead. The air crackled with energy as they emerged, revealing a spectral scene that silenced their hearts. Before them stood the ghostly figures of soldiers, hungry for remembrance, clad in tattered uniforms that shimmered with an otherworldly light. They hovered above the ground, their faces lined with anguish and determination, staring vacantly at the living who dared trespass their sacred ground. One soldier stepped forward, his eyes ablaze with fervor. "We are the fallen," he intoned, his voice carrying the weight of history. "We have waited for many remembrance days, but our stories remain untold, our sacrifices overlooked. We bear witness to the brutality of war, the price paid for freedom." The group stepped back, gripped by a paralyzing fear. They were not alone, and the implications of the soldiers' presence sank deep into their bones. "We need to listen," Alex urged, his heart racing. "They want us to remember." The specter continued, each word resonating through the clearing. Countless souls were lost here, their cries drowned in the muck of warfare. Innocent lives, dreams extinguished, stories left unwritten. You must honor them, share their tales, or we shall remain forever trapped in this purgatory, tethered to the very ground we died for. You, the living, are our only hope. A heavy silence enveloped the clearing as the weight of those words registered. Each specter's sorrow seeped into Alex's skin, their pain mingling with his own memories of war. They were souls not just seeking recognition, but pleading for acknowledgement of the true cost of their sacrifice. As the figure spoke, the air began to swirl with mist, creating an ethereal cocoon around them. Vivid scenes flickered to life, moments frozen in pain and glory. Thomas Ashford's terrified eyes met Alex's. The young boy's body jerked involuntarily as the blast rang out, and the anguished cries of dying men echoed around them, as if the battlefield itself recalled its long-buried horrors. "Do you see?" the soldier urged, stepping closer, his transparent hand reaching out toward Alex. "This land is stained with their sacrifice, their blood mingling with the earth. remember their names, experience their loss, share their legacy, or face the same fate. "I'm listening!" Alex shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. "We'll remember, I promise." In that moment, something shifted. The soldiers began to murmur among themselves, their voices rising in a collective swell. With a purposeful gesture, the lead soldier pointed toward the fallen, urging the others to reveal their stories. Then, one by one, the spirits began to speak, their words slicing through the thick fog, a haunting symphony of life and death. They told of dreams unfulfilled, families left behind, and the horrors of a war that shook the heavens. Their stories were dark but beautiful, wrapped in sorrow yet laced with honor. One tale echoed through Alex's mind as he listened intently. It came from a young soldier named Jonathan, who had been a mere boy when he'd enlisted. "I was only 17, he lamented, his form flickering like a flame caught in the wind. "Rushed into battle, I thought I was a hero, but I hardly understood what that meant. The moment I met my end, I wished I could have turned back time to cherish the laughter of my sister and embrace my mother one last time." As they spoke, the earth seemed to tremble with their pain, and the wind howled like the spirits it held. The fog twisted and coiled, wrapping around Alex and his companions, drawing them deeper into the emotional depths of the soldiers' memories. Suddenly, a low thunder rumbled overhead, as if the heavens themselves mourned alongside the fallen. The fiery glow of the battlefield began to dim, the spectral forms swirling as a storm brewed above. The soldiers' voices rose in urgency. "You must not forget us! This night is critical! Share our stories or we are bound to the soil forever!" Matt, trembling at the weight of the moment, looked around desperately. "What do we do? How do we make this right?" "Remember," Alex spoke, his heart racing, "we've been given this chance. We can honor them by making their memories live on. We need to share their stories, write them down, tell them to others." Suddenly, the wind whipped at them, and Alex could feel the sorrow of the soldiers encompassing him, building until it reached a fever pitch. Their energy surged, intertwining with his own, pulling him toward the stories they longed to tell. "Gather around!" Matt shouted, instinctively stepping into a protective stance. "We'll remember you. We'll share your stories." The soldier who had addressed them stepped forward, a glimmer of hope in his hollow eyes. "Then we shall show you. Bear witness to the truth, the legacy of valor that your silence has sought to bury." With that, the battle began anew in the air around them. An intricate tapestry of emotions, shadows, and flickers of hope merged into a haunting spectacle. Each spirit played its part in the reenactment, reliving the gallant fights, the moments of despair, and the agonizing losses borne on this cursed land. Alex felt the memories streaming into him like a raging river, words and visions spilling forth faster than he could grasp. They showed him the brothers in arms, the friendships forged in fire, the tragic decisions made on the whim of fate. The air thickened with the weight of their stories, each moment pressing down until Alex felt an intensity he'd never experienced. His voice trembled, resonating with the stories echoing in his heart as he summoned every ounce of feeling into his word. "We are here for you! We will remember you!" The spirits began to converge around him, their luminous forms glowing brighter as if their spirits were finally being heard. The atmosphere shifted. A strange harmony filled the air, lifting the weight of sorrow while leaving an indelible mark on Alex's heart. The urgent energy surged, intertwining their souls in a moment of connection so profound that he felt as if he were experiencing their lives through their eyes. "Ashford! Jonathan! The fallen must be remembered!" The yearning was palpable, reverberating around them as a series of dimly glowing lights began to swirl and dance amongst the soldiers, bringing their stories to life. The clearing filled with resonance of gunfire and laughter as the ghostly reenactments unfolded. The shifting tableau revealed the bravery and the chilling moments of their final stand, the resilience of comrades standing firm against waves of terror. Alex felt their pain but also their unwavering spirit. The echo of a haunting lullaby spilled into the air, whispered by a spectral figure, lulling him into the world of the lost. But as their stories painted the sky, the storm intensified. Thunder crashed, a violent reverberation cutting through the eerie melody. The winds began to howl furiously, and the spirits faltered, urgency rising in their voices. "You must remember!" the lead soldier shouted, his voice strained as if fighting against the winds of decay. "If our stories fade, we fade too." The revelation struck Alex with the force of a cannonball. "We won't forget, I promise." He felt the weight of the pact settle upon his shoulders. "We'll carry you with us. Share your tales with others. It will be our life's mission." A surge of energy erupted from the soldiers, swirling with fervor. One by one, they stepped forward, their pain easing as they whispered their names, their final moments forged into the ether. The storm faded slightly, the chaos around them settling into a tense quiet, allowing Alex and his friends to absorb the magnitude of their vow. As dawn broke, the lingering spirits began to fade, their forms shimmering like sand slipping through fingers. The fog lightened, revealing a landscape that was still changed, heightened by the solemnity and reverence of their undertaking. "Thank you," the lead soldier said softly, standing at the precipice of existence. "You carry our legacy now. Speak our names, honor our sacrifice, and you shall never walk alone." With that, the first hues of sunlight began to spill over the horizon, casting warmth into the once chilling air. The clearing, now revealed in the early morning light, appeared tranquil, yet charged with unspoken tales hidden in the grooves of the earth. Alex looked at his friends, their faces still illuminated by the lingering magic of the night. "We did this together," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "This is just the beginning. We'll gather every story, every name, and we'll remind the world what they fought for." Tim, Sarah, and Matt nodded in agreement, the intense experience igniting an unwavering resolve within them. "We'll create a legacy that stands alongside theirs," Matt assured. "We'll host events, share their stories through books, document everything we can. They won't fade into obscurity." As they prepared to leave the battlefield, a sense of melancholy washed over them, the mix of sadness and hope remaining heavy in the air. The warriors who had stood by their side were now at peace, a peace they'd sought for so long. In the months that followed, the four friends channeled their experiences into a documentary series, Shadows of Valor. They interviewed fellow veterans, families of the fallen, and community members, uncovering the rich tapestry of stories that spoke of sacrifice and courage, intertwined through the fabric of time. Every video they published honored the past while igniting conversations about the present and the future. A commitment to remembrance that resonated deeply. Years passed, but the mark of sorrow's end remained freshly inscribed in their hearts. Each Remembrance Day, Alex would return to the battlefield, always alone, yet not lonely. He felt the presence of the fallen surrounding him, and all those who had sacrificed for peace were now his silent comrades, uplifting him as he carried their stories into a world that still often turned a blind eye to their struggles. During one particular service, Alex stood at the foot of the hill, surrounded by a crowd of several hundred, their respect palpable in the crisp autumn air. With each name he read aloud, each veteran's story brought to life, he felt the waves of energy ripple through the gathering, a collective homage to the lives lost. And then he saw them, the soldiers who had once haunted the hill, now fading further into the light. There was determination in their eyes, but also gratitude. They had been heard. They were finally acknowledged. "Thank you, my friends," Alex whispered, a lump forming in his throat. "Your stories will live on, amplified by every voice gathered here today." As he spoke, the wind picked up, rustling the leaves,